Today we are announcing a historic indictment. It's a massive drug trafficking conspiracy spanning nearly a decade, involving tremendous volumes of fentanyl and narcotics.
At 4 in the morning across the vast Arizona desert, 3,200 federal agents simultaneously raided 147 locations. The deafening sound of doors being shattered echoed like a bomb blast. In a single sweep, 5,500 suspects were taken into custody, 62 tons of drugs seized, millions of dollars in cash uncovered, and the most chilling discovery of all 5 state-of-the-art concrete tunnels stretching from Mexico into the United States. Along with this, hundreds of Border Patrol agents and airport workers had been bribed up to $500,000 in just 3 months. And at the heart of it all was a man known only as El Architecto. This isn't a Hollywood thriller, this is the largest real-life operation in Arizona's history, Operation Desert Citadel. Ready to uncover the full story? Watch now. Tonight, every target across the state of Arizona will fall. There is no escape, no second chances. Precisely at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3,200 federal agents will be mobilized. 5,500 arrest warrants executed in a single coordinated operation. 62 shipments of illegal substances seized. This is the largest federal crackdown ever in Arizona's history. For years, many believed the Arizona border was an impenetrable fortress. Yet federal agents have uncovered a truth that has left even the most experienced officers in shock. Beneath the desert's surface, 5 underground tunnels snake directly from Mexico into U.S. territory. And these are not crude, hastily dug holes, they are sophisticated, purpose-built passages. Each tunnel was reinforced with solid concrete outfitted with lighting systems, ventilation and rails for transporting heavy cargo, almost like secret miniature subway lines built under the radar. At the end of each tunnel, officers uncovered 62 massive shipping containers. Inside, they found staggering amounts of dangerous substances like fentanyl and methamphetamine, alongside stacks of cash. Each shipment was marked unmistakably with the symbols of the CJNG Cartel, one of the deadliest criminal organizations in North America today. But the most shocking discovery wasn't the sheer volume of drugs, it was the hidden financial records revealing that several U.S. Border Patrol officers had received bribes of up to $480,000 in just 3 months. These payments ensured that the smuggled shipments passed through the border without a hitch. For many investigators, this was the most damning evidence yet that criminal networks had deeply infiltrated the U.S. security apparatus. The discovery of these tunnels set off a massive multi-agency investigation involving HSI, DEA, and the FBI. What had initially appeared to be a single isolated case quickly unraveled into a vast underground criminal operation operating right in the heart of the desert, an operation powerful enough to smuggle tons of illegal drugs into the country and bribe the very officials sworn to protect the border. As federal investigators dug deeper, they soon realized that these tunnels were just the tip of the iceberg. What they uncovered next would prove even more shocking. A fully operational transportation network had been built, spanning multiple states and engineered to funnel an enormous volume of narcotics straight into the heart of the United States. Through seized financial records, confiscated phones, and surveillance footage, agents began to piece together how the system functioned. Every month, the CJNG cartel was moving a staggering 2.4 tons of product from Mexico into Arizona and then on to Phoenix, Chicago, and Detroit. This network wasn't built on luck or coincidence, it was the result of meticulous planning, strategic bribery, and the corruption of key personnel. At Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, the investigation uncovered that 5 cargo handlers had been secretly paid to swap labels on containers, facilitating the smooth passage of the cartel's shipments. This seemingly simple act allowed the cartel's shipments to be disguised as medical supplies or priority cargo, slipping past security without raising suspicion. Each of these employees was pocketing tens of thousands of dollars every week, with the money funneled through hidden accounts and untraceable digital transactions. But even this was just a fraction of the operation. Agents uncovered that the cartel specifically targeted workers drowning in debt or struggling with overwhelming family medical bills. Once these individuals accepted the initial payment, they were trapped, forced to keep cooperating out of fear of exposure or violent retaliation. Every piece of evidence pointed to one central figure. In encrypted messages, surveillance photos, and payment records, the same codename appeared again and again: El Architecto. He was believed to be the mastermind behind the entire operation, a man who had meticulously designed the routes, the bribery schemes, and the communication networks with the precision of an engineer. For the federal task forces, one truth had become painfully clear. This wasn't just a smuggling operation, it was a full-scale infiltration of America's infrastructure. If left unchecked, millions more lethal doses of fentanyl and methamphetamine would continue flooding into American cities unchecked and unstoppable. By the time investigators pieced together every element of the operation, the 5 tunnels, the 2.4-ton per month pipeline, the corrupt airport workers, and the elusive figure known only as El Architecto, the scale of the threat was undeniable. Federal leadership knew one thing for certain: Arizona was facing the largest cartel infiltration in its history. The threat was no longer limited to the border, it had extended to airports, warehouses, transportation routes, and even law enforcement agencies themselves. If this network wasn't dismantled immediately, thousands of pounds of fentanyl and methamphetamine would continue flooding American cities every single month. At precisely 4:03 in the morning, after weeks of meticulous planning inside a secure command center, the United States launched a massive coordinated operation codenamed Operation Desert Citadel. It would go down as the largest federal raid ever conducted in Arizona. A total of 3,200 agents from the FBI, DEA, HSI, CBP, United States Marshal Service, and state tactical units were deployed across the entire state. Their targets spanned 147 locations linked to the cartel's distribution network, safe houses, warehouse fronts, corrupt logistics hubs, hidden apartments, and shell company offices. Each team had a narrow window of just a few minutes to strike, ensuring suspects couldn't warn one another or destroy evidence. As the operation commenced, the silence of the desert night was violently shattered. Black Hawk helicopters thundered over Phoenix and Tucson, hovering above the quiet neighborhoods where the cartel's overseers had been living covertly in rented homes. On the ground, armored vehicles rumbled through residential streets, their engines reverberating off the walls. At each target, SWAT teams gathered at the doors waiting for the green light to move. The moment the radio signal was sent, dozens of steel breaching rams slammed into metal doors across Arizona, simultaneously unleashing a deafening explosion that echoed for miles. Inside the safe houses, chaos erupted in an instant. Many cartel members were caught off guard, ripped from sleep by the blinding flash of stun grenades flooding the rooms. Others scrambled for back doors or tried to escape across rooftops, only to find federal K-9 units and drones already sealing off every exit. At a warehouse outside Mesa, agents breached a fortified loading bay filled with crates marked as farm equipment. When they tore them open, they uncovered bricks of fentanyl heat-sealed in plastic, stacked like construction blocks on a building site. The confrontations grew even more intense at several transportation hubs. In a converted auto repair shop in North Phoenix, agents were met with gunfire from armed guards protecting a shipment set to move out that morning. Tactical teams responded swiftly, deploying smoke rounds to force their way inside. Once they breached the building, they discovered a makeshift packaging station, complete with scales, commercial vacuum sealers, hazmat suits, and nearly $1 million spread across folding tables. Every corner of the facility bore the unmistakable mark of El Architecto's meticulous planning. As the sun began to rise, the full magnitude of the crackdown became undeniable. Over 5,500 suspects were in custody, statewide, ranging from low-level mules to mid-level coordinators and corrupt insiders. Evidence trucks lined up outside the seized properties, stacking pallet after pallet with confiscated narcotics, cash, and weapons. At Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, federal teams cordoned off the cargo area where the 5 bribed employees had operated, shutting down an entire section for forensic processing. Operation Desert Citadel had struck a devastating blow, but investigators knew this was just the beginning. Hidden deep within the seized encrypted laptops and phones were the final pieces of the puzzle clues that could expose the man who masterminded the entire operation, El Architecto. His capture would determine whether this storm truly marked the end of Arizona's darkest infiltration. As the dust began to settle from Operation Desert Citadel, federal analysts turned their focus to the most chilling aspect of the case: just how deeply the CJNG network had infiltrated America's systems. Do you think the 5 concrete tunnels and the hundreds of corrupt officers were only the tip of the iceberg? The tunnels and seized drugs were the visible, tangible parts of the operation. But the real danger, the part that almost went unnoticed, was the quiet corruption operating behind the scenes, allowing the cartel to function like a shadow corporation embedded within the very infrastructure of the United States. As agents sifted through thousands of confiscated devices, a chilling pattern began to emerge. The cartel had studied American institutions with the precision of an engineer examining a building, mapping weaknesses, identifying vulnerable employees, and exploiting financial or personal struggles. Their approach was methodical and strategic, far more calculated than anything investigators had encountered in Arizona for decades. The corruption began with the Border Patrol. Documents uncovered inside the tunnels revealed regular bribes ranging from $40,000 to $70,000 every 2 weeks, funneled through encrypted apps. The officers weren't selected at random. They had been watched for months, targeted because they were struggling with overwhelming debt, facing foreclosure, or drowning in massive medical bills. Cartel emissaries approached them with apparent sympathy, offering what seemed like short-term loans. Once they accepted the first payment, they were trapped. Within 3 months, each officer had pocketed nearly $500,000. The exact same pattern unfolded at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, where the 5 cargo handlers now under investigation hadn't started out as criminals either. Some of these workers were middle-aged individuals with families, one of whom had a daughter battling leukemia. The cartel exploited these vulnerabilities with ruthless precision. Payments were disguised as fake consulting fees from shell logistics companies. Supervisors never questioned the sudden appearance of new cars or home renovations because these workers remained calm, punctual, and reliable, the very kind of employees no one would ever suspect. Airport surveillance footage revealed just how sophisticated the operation was. A simple label swap taking no more than 6 seconds rerouted entire containers into the emergency medical lane. From there, the shipments bypassed all screening and were sent directly to waiting trucks. A 6-second maneuver had allowed 2.4 tons of illegal cargo to slip through every month. The infiltration went far beyond just personnel. The cartel had secretly installed network repeaters, encrypted radios, and relay devices inside the rafters of warehouses, giving them real-time updates on security schedules, cargo arrival times, and which officers were on duty. In an off-site storage facility outside Tucson, agents uncovered a hidden server linked to a remote command center believed to be operated by El Architecto himself. This system tracked dozens of U.S. routes in real time, effectively creating a digital map of America's vulnerabilities. Federal officials were now forced to confront a brutal reality. This was no longer a traditional smuggling operation. That was a structural breach, an intricate criminal architecture designed to blend seamlessly with legitimate infrastructure. The cartel had blurred the line between legal commerce and illicit trade so effectively that for years their network had operated in plain sight. With hundreds of insiders already uncovered and thousands of encrypted files still under analysis, investigators realized the mission was evolving. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the deeper challenge loomed, exposing every remaining vulnerability that had allowed the infiltration to happen in the first place. As news of Operation Desert Citadel spread across Arizona, the public's reaction was swift and intense. Many residents had long suspected that something was deeply amiss. Despite the numerous red flags and the skyrocketing overdose numbers, few had imagined the true scale of the operation lurking right beneath their feet. The discovery of the underground tunnel system and the arrest of 5,500 individuals sent shockwaves across Arizona, leaving residents reeling at how deeply an international criminal network had infiltrated their state. For the victims' families, it was a painful confirmation that the crisis wasn't being fueled by small-time street dealers, but by a vast supply chain pumping poison into communities faster than any single effort could hope to stop. Some stood quietly holding photographs of sons, daughters, brothers, and parents, lost to overdose, silent reminders of just how personal this crisis had become. In smaller towns like Yuma, Nogales, and Casa Grande, the reaction mixed grief with raw anger. People demanded answers. How had Border Patrol officers been corrupted so easily? How had airport workers operated beneath the radar for years? Why had federal agencies uncovered what local authorities had missed for so long? Town hall meetings overflowed with citizens calling for tighter oversight, clearer information, and unmistakable protection along the border and at every transportation hub. Fear spread quickly after the exposure of massive drug trafficking networks, with parents worrying about school safety near transportation routes and businesses fearing their warehouses could be exploited. The death rate associated with controlled substances surged by 380% in just 2 years, highlighting the true scale of the systemic crisis. Operation Desert Citadel, carried out through the coordinated efforts of the Drug Enforcement Administration Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security Investigations, and Customs and Border Protection, dismantled the core of the criminal network, offering temporary relief to the Arizona community. However, the risk remains that other groups could seize the power vacuum, requiring continued vigilance from authorities. While the arrest marked a significant victory, true recovery demands not only law enforcement action, but a complete overhaul of security systems for borders, airports, and transportation corridors. This will be achieved through the Arizona Redeployment Task Force, addressing structural vulnerabilities and working to restore public confidence. Its mission was simple yet daunting: ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. More than 900 additional Border Patrol agents were redeployed to the sector, along with newly trained rapid response teams specially equipped to detect tunnels and underground operations. These units deployed advanced seismic sensors, fiber optic cables, and heat mapping drones to monitor areas where new tunnels could be constructed. Simultaneously, the federal government approved the installation of 2,400 infrared cameras across critical border sectors, enabling real-time nighttime motion detection. These efforts were complemented by a comprehensive internal audit of CBP personnel focusing on financial screening, lifestyle changes, and any unexplained income, ensuring that no part of the system remained vulnerable to corruption. It was an uncomfortable but necessary step to identify any remaining compromised officers. Airports also underwent significant overhauls. At Phoenix Sky Harbor, a completely new cargo tracking system was implemented, utilizing biometric verification and tamper-proof digital seals that could not be swapped or altered without immediately alerting federal servers. Cargo handling crews were rotated more frequently, and any employee with access to high-risk zones was now required to complete a newly developed anti-corruption training program. These measures were part of a broader effort to rebuild trust and fortify the integrity of the transportation system. For many workers, this was the first time they fully understood how a simple 6-second label swap had enabled a multi-million-dollar smuggling ring to thrive. In response, cities across Arizona launched community programs to address the deeper fallout. Mental health services were expanded to support the surge in overdose-related trauma, and schools received funding to improve campus security while providing resources for students impacted by addiction within their families. Local authorities also teamed up with the DEA to hold public briefings, educating residents on how the smuggling pipeline operated and helping them understand the complexity of the crisis, as well as the importance of long-term vigilance. In the end, Operation Desert Citadel was more than just a takedown, it was a warning. The tunnels, the bribes, the airport infiltration, they all revealed how quickly a criminal network can expand when left unchecked and how deeply it can infiltrate the very systems designed to protect us. The lesson was clear. Security is not a wall, it is a responsibility. When corruption goes unnoticed, danger spreads silently through communities, families, and entire states. Arizona fought back and won, but only because people paid attention, asked questions, and refused to accept what seemed normal. That vigilance must continue. The greatest lesson from Operation Desert Citadel wasn't the concrete tunnels or the 5,500 arrests. It was a brutal truth: the most dangerous enemy doesn't always carry a gun or cross the border in the dark. Sometimes they wear the same uniform, stand right beside you, and all it takes is one moment of weakness, debt, or a sick family member for an entire system to crumble. Corruption isn't loud, it quietly erodes from within. That's why protecting the border doesn't just require taller walls or better cameras, it requires honest people and a society that won't let anyone become so desperate they're willing to sell their soul. That is the hard-won lesson Arizona leaves for all of us. Operation Desert Citadel came to an end, but the question still lingers. Did we truly stop El Architecto, or has he simply retreated to dig a new tunnel somewhere else? Arizona won a major battle, but the war against those who turned the border into a cash machine, fueled by American blood, is far from over. What do you think? Are the reforms being put in place strong enough, or will we find ourselves facing a Desert Citadel 2 in just a few years? Drop your thoughts below. Do you believe El Architecto is finally behind bars, or is he still out there free? Like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.